Welcome to the Dan Norton Show. It is Thursday, August 21st, 2025. This is a show on which I promote Ayn Rand's philosophy of objectivism, a philosophy of reason, egoism, and capitalism, and many other things as well, as you can see in my background, which I newly created for the last stream. There are many other topics that figure into Ayn Rand's philosophy, and we can talk about any or all of them. Probably won't have time to talk about all of them on any one show, but we can at least talk about some of them. So I invite you all to join in and help shape the show. I see we got one person in chat so far. Hi, RW. And I invite you to participate through the chat. And you can make comments, ask questions, just say hello. And you can also call in. I have a phone line, and the instructions on how to access it are pinned in the Zoom chat. Oh, hi Duitse. She's here as well. And we got a few likes on the stream. That's great to see. That many likes this early. I'm also streaming at an earlier than usual time. I've been changing around my stream time to hopefully catch new audiences, times which might be better for other people. And I guess it's better for the Europeans for me to stream earlier because they're 8 or 9 hours ahead. So welcome to you wherever you are in the world. And I, I I was going to stream yesterday. I mentioned, or yeah, I mentioned in the last stream that I was going to probably stream 3 days from then, which was Sunday, yesterday. But I had some other things going on yesterday, and I didn't get a great night's sleep. So I wanted to hold off and stream at a better time for me. So typically, I think I'll be streaming every 3 or 4 days. It's never set in stone. I always, on a day that I plan to stream, I'll see, how am I feeling? Did I get a good night's rest? Did anything come up that's gonna throw a wrench in my plans? Um, if not, and if I am feeling I got enough energy, got a good rest, then I'll stream that day. But I expect it'll be every 3 or 4 days. That's the plan at least. And if you're a subscriber, you'll be notified if you hit that bell for notifications. So, all right. So I've got a few things I could talk about, but I do want to give priority to people who are here live. So definitely jump in with a topic if there's something you want me to discuss. And otherwise, I'll just talk about some other things. Because one thing I'll talk about now is my YouTube eligibility for being monetized. So I've said many times that I need to hit 1,000 subscribers in order to have my channel monetized. But actually, there are different ways of being monetized, and I've already hit one of the thresholds, or at least half of one of the thresholds in order to get monetized. I'll bring something up on the screen shortly to show you more exactly what I'm talking about. Um, but the so one way of being monetized is to have YouTube run ads on your videos, and for that you need 1,000 subscribers. I'm up to 931 right now. So if you get 1,000 subscribers and 4,000 hours of watch time in the last 12 months, then you're eligible to have YouTube run ads on your videos, and I'll get a share of some of that ad revenue. Um, However, what I just realized this morning, I was looking more carefully at the terms of monetization is in order to do super chats on YouTube where you can attach dollars to one of your chats here during the live stream. To do super chats, I only need 500 subscribers, and I already have that, well above that. Um, so I'm already good to go on taking super chats as far as subscribers go. However, there's one other requirement I also need to hit to take super chats, and that is I need to have 3,000 hours of watch time over the last 12 months. And that's the one I'm still working on. Right now I'm at I think like 18 or 1900 some hours. I have to get that up to 3,000. So I'm about two-thirds of the way there. And I think I'm on pace to hit that if I keep doing these live streams, which have been helpful a lot with getting my watch time up. If I keep doing the live streams at the same rate I've been doing them, I'm confident I'll get to that 3,000 hour mark. So let me just share a little video, one that I watched on YouTube this morning that explains exactly how the monetization works. Let me get a cough drop here. And I'm going to share my screen. And I got to remember to share the sounds. Okay. So you should be able to see the video now. So the YouTube Partner Program, that's what it's called when you become eligible to monetize your channel. You join what's called the YouTube Partner Program. So this is a video put out by YouTube's own channel or for YouTube creators. And I queued it up so that it starts at this section, how to apply for the YouTube Partner Program. And it talks about various things you need to do. For example, it says here you can't have any active community guidelines strikes, like violations of terms of service or something. You have to set up two-step verification, etc. And then the last one on the list that they talk about is how to hit these eligibility thresholds, which I was just talking to you about. Um, so I'm going to play from there. Whoop, I lost my where'd my screen go? There we go. Um, I'm rotating between several different windows. I need to close some of these windows. Okay, so I'm just going to play, I don't know, 30 seconds or a minute of this on how to hit the eligibility thresholds.
To earn with fan funding and certain shopping features, the thresholds are 500 subscribers, 3 valid public uploads in the last 90 days, and either 3,000 valid public watch hours in the past year or 3 million valid public shorts views in the last 90 days.
Okay, so that's what I was just talking about. Um, you got to have 500 subscribers. You need 3 valid public uploads. So you've uploaded 3 videos at least in the last 90 days. And either you can have 3,000 valid public watch hours in the last year, or you can have 3 million views on the shorts. You know how YouTube has a separate section on the channels for if you have short videos like under 1 minute or under 3 minutes. I don't know exactly what the cutoff is, but if you get 3 million views on those, then that's another way to qualify. I'm not really in the running for that. I'm not shooting for that. I have a few short videos on my channel. If you click on the shorts tab, you'll see like maybe 6 or 7, but they don't have a lot of views on them. So I haven't really been structuring my channel to be dependent on getting a lot of views on the shorts. I'm more focused on the long form content, and I'm aiming at this one where I'm trying to get 3,000 hours public watch hours. So as I said, I'm close to 2,000 right now, and if I keep up with my live streaming, I'm very confident that I will be able to get up to 3,000 within the next year. Um, Maybe within a few months. I don't know. We'll see. However, this only allows me to take super chats in the chat. It doesn't allow me yet to get ad revenue, have ads run on my videos, and then get a share of the revenue. This only allows me to do super chats and stickers, super stickers. I guess that's like if you don't have a comment or something you want to make in the chat, you can still contribute money during a live stream by clicking on this sticker, what they call a sticker. And I also learned there's something called super thanks, which I guess is if you want to have your comments prioritized below a video. So if you want to comment on a video as opposed to um, putting a chat in the live stream, you can do what's called a super thanks comments, and that prioritizes your chat. I guess it appears higher in the list of comments, and it's got some colors associated with it or something. So I can do that kind of stuff once I hit 3,000 um, hours. But if I want to do the ad revenue, then that's when I have to hit 1,000 subscribers and have not 3,000 watch hours, but 4,000 hours of watch time. So I'll just play a few more seconds of this where this video talks about that.
As you continue to grow, you'll unlock revenue sharing from ads and YouTube Premium once you hit 1,000 subscribers and either 4,000 valid public watch hours in the past year or 10 million valid public shorts views in the last 90 days.
Okay. So again, there's other ways you can get to this more full revenue threshold. And I'm not aiming for the 10 million views on the shorts. I'm doing more of the long form content, aiming at getting my watch hours up. So I'm about halfway to this because I said I'm around 2,000. And I'm very close to this. I have 931. Well, I don't know how long it's going to take me to get this remaining 69 subscribers I need, but I'm closer to this proportionately than I am to this. Although I might actually hit the public watch hours before I hit the 1,000 subscribers. I don't know which one I'm going to hit first because they don't grow at the same rate. Um, so I mean, the subscribers sometimes they come in spurts. Like if I go on someone else's channel I'm interviewed by someone else, or I do a debate with some other content creator, that might expose me to a lot more people, and then I might get a bunch of subscribers after I do that appearance. But that's kind of irregular. Whereas the live streaming I do on my own channel, it's more consistent and steady. So that's a more of a predictable kind of rate of increase. And so I'm actually not sure which of these two I'm going to hit first, but I think I have a good shot at hitting both of those in under a year. All right, so I'm going to stop that screen share now. And come back to the chat. Let me just close some windows here before I forget. Okay, close that, close that. Uh, Maybe I'll leave that one open. Maybe I'll use this later. And close this. Got a lot of windows open. But fortunately, I think my new Mac is pretty good at handling it. Hasn't crashed on me. Let me close this one. Yeah, I'll close this one. Oh, I have to, there we go. All right. So you've got some more people here. That's good to see. Thanks for joining the stream. Thanks for the likes as well. And we got a few more chats here. Godspeed is here. Hi, Godspeed. Were you able to hear the audio in that YouTube video? I hope so, because I did intend to share the sound, but I guess if you didn't, you could at least understand because I was explaining it all. Let's see. Duitse says, I've been using my other account to play some of your previous live streams in the backgrounds. Oh, you mean to help with the watch time? So you have two accounts open? Um, yeah, I know. I've heard of people trying to use tricks like that. I don't know if YouTube has a way to filter out watch time like that, where someone is just playing something in the background solely to increase watch time on their channel. Like, I don't know if they have a way of detecting the IP address that you're using, and if they maybe if they see something that looks suspicious, they can um, not count those hours. I'm not sure, but hopefully I will get genuine watch time. That's really what I'm aiming for. Um, Not like one person logged in on 10 different accounts on their own computer playing my stream simultaneously on all 10 different accounts. And um, hopefully I get genuine watch time. Duitse then says the socialists won't like the super chats. Um, maybe not. Maybe not. But they can ask them too. They can ask super chats. They can I guess if they want to steer the discussion, if they want to try to frame the discussion more to their liking, they could try to do that by using super chats. So maybe they will like the super chats. Maybe they think that'll give them some a greater amount of control over what I say. I guess in a way it does. I mean, it does have an influence on how I on what I talk about. But I invite socialists to participate. So I'll be but I will be giving priority to super chatters once I start doing super chats. I mean, assuming YouTube accepts my application, I don't see why they wouldn't, but I guess it's not guaranteed. Like once I hit my thresholds and then I apply to YouTube, it takes them about a month to review my channel. And they have, I think, both automated processes reviewing it and human reviewers. And assuming I pass their checks and my channel looks okay to them, then I can start taking super chats. So, um, and yeah, so once I get to that point, I will be prioritizing people who submit super chats and engaging with those comments most or first. I'll have to figure out exactly what kind of priority they get, but they will get some kind of priority. So take advantage of the free days you have now when you don't have to compete with people who are doing super chats. You can maybe I'll have some special day where I um, give everyone equal opportunity, whether it's a super chat or not. But there's so much to think about. But anyways, it'll be fun. I'm definitely going to enjoy that. I want to make this thing financially self-sustaining, and then I can do more. I won't have to spend as much time doing other things to make money, um, to pay the bills. I can put more time into my YouTube channel. Greg says the socialist days are numbered, right? I hope so. I hope so. Yeah, I'm trying to make them numbered, give them less time, and make the world pro-freedom and pro-capitalism uh, as soon as I can. Duitse says yes to help with the watch time. Okay, that's why she's playing some of my content in the background. She says normally it should count. You have to actively click on each video for it to count. I looked it up. Hmm. Okay. Um, I have noticed sometimes when I'm like even I think even when I'm live streaming sometimes the view counter, like how many people are watching, I think I've seen it go to zero. Even when I'm live streaming. So maybe if YouTube doesn't detect that you're actively engaged with a window or the tab that the video is playing in, then it doesn't count the viewer. So maybe that's related to what you're saying, Ducci, that you have to actively click on each video for it to count. Um, I'm wondering now, though, maybe is it morally right to try to trick the algorithm and make it think that the video is getting more watch time than it actually is, like from individual people by just playing it in other windows? I kind of doubt it. Um, so it's just something for you to think about. Like, is it right to try to trick YouTube into thinking videos have more valid watch time? What I assume by valid watch time, it means people are, you have someone who's actually watching it, not just has it open in multiple windows in order to help someone increase their um, statistics. So, um, just something to think about. Uh, okay, we got Mr. is here. That's it. It's not Mr. with the last name. The screen name is just capital M lowercase r. I don't know if that's short for Mr. There's no period after it, but I think I'm just gonna say period until Mr. tells me I should pronounce it some other way. And then Greg says, "Is that a 13th floor question?" Asking Mr. I guess that was Mr. Looks like he retracted a message, so I can no longer see what Greg is responding to. Um, but I see later Mr. says to Greg that I realized my question was dumb. Okay, so he decided to retract his question. All right, that's something you can do. And then it won't be preserved for all eternity in the YouTube live chat replay. All right, great to see. We got 15 people here. That's very high for this earlier in the show. Often that's higher than it ever gets during a show. So I think the most I ever had watching simultaneously was about 16. So uh, good numbers today. Maybe this is a good time to stream. I haven't streamed this early before, at least not usually. All right, Robert is here. Hi, Robert. So let me read through some more of these chats. Um, Robert says most controversial slash misunderstood Ayn Rand passages. We never had to take any of it seriously, did we? No, we never had to. That's from Atlas Shrugged, for anyone who doesn't know. We talked about that on a previous stream. I remember you mentioned that quote once, and I said a little about it. I think I talked about how it was a way of affirming a benevolent universe premise. Like there's all these bad things in the world, but you don't have to take it seriously. That's not really what matters in life. So there might be some pain and suffering in life, but there's no need to focus on that to the exclusion of positive things and to dwell on them. That shouldn't be the primary focus. The primary focus should be pursuing and achieving values and happiness in life. That should be the centerpiece of life. Also, motivation by love versus motivation by fear. That's a distinction Ayn Rand discusses. Um, Achieving happiness is not the same as avoiding pain. Um, Even if you avoid pain, that's not really getting you something positive, something worth living for. It's just the absence of a negative, but the absence of a negative is not the same as a positive. Um, you want to have something positive in your life. Okay. And then just another quote from that Robert gives. Love is the exception making. There were stops. The pain only goes down to a certain point, but I don't think of you. Okay, yeah, some more good quotes there from Ayn Rand's novels. Um, Duitse says, oh, I read that one from her. Um, the next one, Godspeed says, they will be if America can be the first to successfully resist a socialist revolution. Outlook is actually optimistic. So I guess you're responding to my comment from before, where or someone's comment about the socialist days are numbered, and you say they will be if America can be the first to successfully resist a socialist revolution. I don't know if it's the first. I don't know if you would consider what Argentina is doing under Milei to be resisting a socialist revolution. Well, I don't know if you would say it's socialist or that there's a socialist revolution. I don't know the history of Argentina well, but but let me mention one other thing before I go further. I did produce a or publish a video yesterday, or was it 2 days ago? Maybe it was 2 days ago. On my channel, I did a debate with a liberal who goes by the name, or his channel is called Jolah Politics. Maybe I'll bring that up. Oh, I see we just hit 17 viewers. That might be a record of concurrent viewers during a live stream. Great to see. All right, thanks to everyone for being here. Thanks for the likes. Let me pull up the videos tab on my channel so you can see what I'm talking about. I'm going to share my screen again. Here we go. All right, so in the video section of my channel, I published this debate yesterday. Debate with a liberal, Jolah Politics, on capitalism, coercion, individualism, etc. And some of you were here for that. Um, I guess that was, I think it was 2 days ago. Let me click on it actually, because it says 1 day ago in the, but that just means at a minimum. Like if it's between 1 and 2 days, it shows up as being 1 day ago. Oh, we just got another subscriber. It's up to 932 now. Great. Thank you. So now, if you want to know exactly your number, now is a good time to subscribe because once it hits 1,000, it's just going to say 1K subscribers, or it might give 3 digits. It might say 1.00K subscribers, or once I hit 1,010 subscribers, it'll say 1.01K for 1,010, but it won't give you the ones digit. So if you want to know exactly what subscriber you are, if you want to be part of the elite group of the first 1,000 subscribers on Dan's channel, now is a good time to do it. All right, we're up to 18. I think this is very high for one of my videos to get 18 likes. Um, So I did this debate with this guy, Jolah Politics. He has almost 30,000 subscribers on his channel. This was actually a few months ago that I did this debate, April 11th of this year, but I didn't publish it until a couple days ago, just because I was busy with other things and I didn't have time to edit it and prepare this all these timestamps for the description, and I had to sync it up with, what other videos am I producing? Like if I'm going to live stream this day, what's a good time to fit this other video in between my live streams? So it just took a while. Hopefully in the future, it won't take this long between the actual live events and publishing it on my channel. But if you want to check out my most recently published debate, this is now on my channel. And so I saw some of you here for the premiere of that. I saw Duitse, she was in the chat. Jason Adams was here. He's sometimes, both of them are in my live stream audience sometimes. I just called in on the phone. So he has a call-in show just like I do. So you don't see my video. Um, you just hear me. All right, I'm going to stop this screen share now. And let me go back to the chat first to see if there's any comments related to this. No, I don't see any. Okay, I'm going to stop that screen share and come back to the chat. All right, so right, I read through some of these quotes from Robert from the Fountainhead, and let's see what else is in here. How far am I behind? 12:01. Greg says, I thought it may have been simulated when I submitted my inquiry and the subject disappeared. Not sure what you mean there. Maybe you're referring to the chat that disappeared. I see another chat from Mr. that which disappeared. Um, then Robert said, oh, these are more quotes. Never think of pain or fear or enemies a moment longer than is necessary to fight them. That's from Atlas Shrugged. And then Duitse says, I've seen different viewer counts on live streams depending on when you look at the live chat or not. I've seen different viewer counts on my live streams when I've just done tests, when it's only me. So I've just done nobody else has the link, and I do a live stream just to test something out. And I've seen it go up to 4 viewers. So I think they might just be bots that YouTube sends out. Maybe they gather data on the stream or something. I don't know what they are, but yeah, sometimes you see strange things with the viewer counts. And it can be different on different platforms. Like sometimes if I'm looking on my laptop at the number of viewers watching, it's different than if I look on my phone. So it's a very complex system. Okay. All right. Then we have Andrew Rich, new person. Haven't seen him before. Hi, Andrew. He asks, what are your thoughts about meeting me in the boundless sphere of fate? I don't know what that means. I'm meeting you right now in the live chat on YouTube. I wouldn't say it's a boundless sphere of fate, though, because I think free will is real. So fate Well, I guess there's different fate. Maybe if it could be compatible with free will, if you understand it to be the idea that you are destined to meet some outcome in the future, but how you get there might be things up to you on the way, things that you can freely choose. Like maybe you are fated to become a millionaire at the age of 80, but how you get there, whether it's by winning the lottery or making stock investments, maybe that's up to you. Maybe you have freedom with regard to the steps by which you meet your fate, but but the fate itself is written in stone. That can't change. So I think that might be one kind of fatalism, which is not exactly the same as determinism, which would say that everything along the way is fated, so to speak. So there's no choice points at all to get to some destination. Every moment is dictated. Is predetermined, whether it's by God or by the laws of physics. Um, it's it couldn't be otherwise than it is. That's the idea of determinism. But I don't agree with either of those things, either that you're determined at every moment or that you have some final destiny that's fated for you. Um, so I don't think there is a boundless sphere of fate, but I do think there's a sphere of free will, and I think we exist in it right now, and we've met in that sphere. You ask, have you read Suba Hibi? No, I have no idea what Suba Hibi is, but I'm Googling it right now. Oh, looks like some kind of manga. Is that what it's called? Suba Hibi is a Japanese horror mystery visual novel developed by Kiro Q. Okay. It was released for Windows in 2010 and was given international release by Frontwing in 2017. Okay. Some kind of novel, I guess a digital novel. It was released for Windows, it says. So haven't heard of a novel being released for Windows, but I guess in these days, maybe some novels never reach print. They're only published online or digitally. Maybe that's the case with this. And then we have Benji. Hi, Benji. He says, "What do you think of Wittgenstein's Tractatus?" Did I read the Tractatus? I think I did read the Tractatus when I was in graduate school. His two main works, or I guess the best or most influential works, best, I meant to say best known. I don't want to say best. Best known works or most influential works are the Tractatus Logico-Philosophicus, which I think was the earlier of the two works I'm about to mention. The other one is Philosophical Investigations. And I think many people they distinguish between the early Wittgenstein and the later Wittgenstein, and I think these two works are representative of those two Wittgensteins. So the early one, I guess maybe he was it would be considered part of the logical atomists or logical positivist tradition in philosophy, um, which it's been a while since I've read about that, but I think part of that might have been the picture theory of language, where the words you use um, correspond in a literal way to things in the world. I don't know if I can give a good example of this to explain it right now. But then later, his view changed in philosophical investigations, and I don't know if he wholesale rejected his earlier view, but somehow he had a different view of language. Um, I don't know if his view became nominalist. I think in Ayn Rand's book, Introduction to Objectivist Epistemology, there are a few references to Wittgenstein, and I think he might be classified as a nominalist in that work, and um, maybe look for the meaning, not for the use. I think that might be one of his quotes or slogans as to his view of language. Um, there's no objective use of language; it's just arbitrary what terms mean. I'm not sure if that's a good representation or a good characterization of Wittgenstein's view. I don't know much about Wittgenstein. I've studied him a little in graduate school, but it's been a long time. Um, so I don't know if I can say much about what I think of his view in the Tractatus. Um, I mean, I can say that I don't agree with nominalism. So if he is a nominalist about concepts, so to explain that term a little bit for anyone who's not familiar, the idea that what's common to things that we group under a certain term, like the term man, right? That could refer to me, it could refer to you, um, where man is used in a generic sense, not like a gendered, not male, but just in the generic sense that sometimes that term is used, or, where it's like human, right? So human, that can refer to me, it can refer to you, it can refer to Wittgenstein, it can refer to Aristotle. And we have differences, right? You might be female, I'm male. You might be 80 years old or 18 years old or 40 years old. You might be in Belgium, or you might be in Africa or United States. There's all these differences that um, these many things that we call man or human have. So, what is similar about all these different things, in virtue of which we are justified in applying the same term, man? Is there some commonality? Like, is it that we all have some sort of DNA that's similar? Is it that we all have two arms and two legs and a head? Is it that we all wear clothes? Some of these you might throw out, like maybe if you're a paraplegic, would you want to say that's not a man? Or if someone's doesn't wear clothes, maybe they're a nudist. Is that not a man? No, we don't want to say that. So we can't say it's clothes that we have all in common, or that it's having two arms that we all have in common, because some things that are man or humans don't have these features. So what is the one in the many? What is the one thing that justifies our using this one in the same term to apply to all of them? That's a question which philosophers have wrestled with for millennia, going back to the ancient Greeks. I think that's when this problem first um, began to be discussed. And then Plato had a theory of universals, so-called universals. What's universal among all these particulars, these particular concrete things? What's the one in the many? He had a theory which philosophers called realism. Um, he thought there was these forms in another dimension, which all the concretes of this dimension participate in. So there's this form of humanness or manness in the world of forms. And um, me as an individual human, I am a human in virtue of the fact that I somehow partake in that otherworldly form. I am an instance of it. Um, and Aristotle had a different theory of universals. Um, and much later, well, maybe there were, I don't know if there were nominalists in the ancient world, but I think it at least became more prominent in the modern world, um, that there actually wasn't anything in common between all the particulars. All there was in common is the name. We just apply this name, human, to all these discrete concretes in the world, but there's really nothing that the concretes themselves have in common that justifies our doing that. Well, you might say there's a family resemblance among the things we apply the term human to, and I think that that's a term that Wittgenstein used, family resemblance. Um, but there's not one identical thing. I think we can at least say that about Wittgenstein's view. Um, so now I'm not a nominalist. Ayn Rand was not a nominalist. She has a whole book just on this topic of the problem of universals, or you might also call it the theory of concepts, because um, abstract terms like man or human, which apply to many particular things, those are concepts. And she wrote a book on her theory of concepts and on what does justify using one and the same term to apply to many different things that have many different characteristics. So I can at least say that I'm not an anomalist. So insofar as Wittgenstein is an anomalist, I would disagree with him on that point. But there's probably much more to his philosophy and maybe many other things that you might be interested in asking about, but there's at least a little. Okay, Greg says uh, my last video with Jolah Politics was in the afternoon of the 19th. Yeah, yeah, that was yeah, noon. It was noon Pacific time is when I think I aired that video. Or maybe I should say 12:02 to be exact, because YouTube has this 2 minute like intro video, or like intro music. There's a countdown to when the video starts. So it was the countdown, the 2 minute countdown, which started at noon Pacific on the 19th. So the actual video started at 12:02. There's a way to adjust that countdown as well as the music that goes along with it and the timing of it. Like I could have set it to start at 11:58 a.m. and then the video actually would have started at noon exactly. Maybe I'll do that in the future. I don't know, but not a big deal. Robert says where it reads 1K, you can tap or click it and it'll change to display the actual number. But yes, everyone should subscribe right away. Okay, I didn't know that you could tap it and change the number. I think I've tried that though. I'm gonna try it right now. I'm gonna go to somebody's channel and okay, yeah, when I do that, it doesn't change. Now I know if you oh no, that's on a different play on X, I think sometimes like right now for me on X I have 1,420 followers on X, I think. But on certain screens on X, it rounds that to the nearest hundred, so it just says 1.4K. But there is a way to change that number to get the exact down to the ones digit. But I haven't seen a way to do that on YouTube, so um, I'm curious how to do that now. Maybe I'll go to maybe I'll share this screen. This is just some other video I was watching, which maybe I'll talk about later. Um, but I'm just gonna use this as a test, so maybe Robert can tell me if I'm looking in the wrong place. I'm going to share this screen. Oh, I see someone has entered the waiting room on Zoom. Someone has called in. Michael Bollinger. Hold on, I got to stop this ringer on my phone. Not the person who called in from Zoom, but oh, that was strange. Michael just disappeared from the Zoom waiting room, or I guess he wasn't in the waiting room yet, but no, yeah, I think he was in the waiting room, but Oh, now he just called back in. Okay, he appears again. Um, just a sec. I'm reading. I just got a text which I want to just take a second to read here. Okay, interesting. All right, so Michael has called in, but let me just finish what I was doing. I was going to Michael, I haven't seen you in the chat. I usually like to see someone in the chat before I take a call. Could you say something in the YouTube chat, Michael? I don't know if you have a different screen name there, but can you let me know in the YouTube chat if you're the one who called into Zoom? Because I might want to screen your call. So oh yeah, I was going to share this screen. Here we go. No, that's the wrong one. This is the one I want. Share. Okay. So now you should be able to see. Oh, Benji says it's me. You're Michael Bollinger in Zoom. Okay. I'll get to you. I'll come to you in a minute. Maybe you can chat a little more, but let me just um, say what I was going to say about the the subscriber count. Okay, yeah. So here I was watching this person's video, Straighter Raid, and it says so this person has over 1,000 subscribers. It says 1.57K. It does not show the ones digit. So Robert, you said if you click on it, it'll display, but I'm clicking on it here. It's not doing anything. It's just highlighting the text. So do I have to click somewhere else? Where do I click in order to see the ones digit? Um, can you clarify uh, what you mean? Coming back to the chat. Oh, Robert, I just see a chat from Robert. He says, you're right. I was confusing the view count and subscriber count. Yeah, you can see the exact number of views, but for the subscribers, it doesn't show you the exact number. It only gives you three digits, the largest three, right? Whatever they are. So if you got over 1,000 or at least 1,000, then it's going to just show you the thousands, hundreds, and tens digit, not the ones digit. All right, I'm going to stop that screen share. Okay. Thanks for I see we got some more likes. Thanks for that. And okay, so Benji said he called in and he says I guess he's Michael Bollinger. What have you said so far, Benji? Oh, you're the one who asked about Wittgenstein's Tractatus. Was that the only comment you made in the chat? I'm just looking back through it. So I don't know if you want to talk about Wittgenstein or what, but all right, I will take your call. Let me just make sure my Zoom settings are correct. And actually, could you tell me in the chat what you want to talk about? Like if you want to talk more about Wittgenstein or if there was some other topic. I'm still adjusting my Zoom settings. Oh, you're no longer in the waiting room. Oh yeah, yeah, you are. I closed the window that gave me the notification. Um, I guess you could also tell me in the free will. You want to talk about free will? Okay. All right. I'm going to take Benji's call, and after I admit him, which I just did, he's going to have to. I'm going to have to ask you to unmute. So let me ask you to unmute, and then I should be able to hear you. Hello.
Hello,
Hi.
can you hear me?
I can.
Um, yeah, I just wanted to talk about because you said earlier you don't you think free will is you believe in free will. I personally don't. I just want to see why you believe in it.
Why I believe in it.
Yeah.
Okay.
Oh, before you speak, would you like to turn my camera on?
No. Let's just do audio.
All right.
Maybe in the future, because I've had some problems with people abusing the video option in the past, and
Okay, I understand.
I just want to make sure I get to know someone a little better first, and maybe if
Yeah, it's
things go
fine.
well, then in the future maybe we could do that. But for now, right now, let's just do audio.
Sure.
Okay, so you want to know why I believe in free will?
Yeah.
Well, I think there is some direct evidence that through introspection, there is what is called extrospection, which is a term that might not be familiar to you, but it's just another way of saying the senses that enable you to look out, like the eyes, the ears, the nose, the mouth, or the tastes, and the familiar five senses. I think you could call extrospection because they're directed outward, but introspection, our ability to look in, like how do you know that you have a headache? Through introspection. It's not that you see a headache somewhere out there in the world with your eyes. You don't hear the headache. You can just feel it internally. Or how do you know that um, right now, if I say think of an animal in your mind, maybe you thought of a jaguar. Well, I don't know. Maybe you thought of something else. Maybe
An
you thought of
elephant.
a you thought of an elephant. Okay.
Yeah.
But I can't know that just by using my senses extrospectively. There's nothing I can do. But you, introspectively, you can observe your own mind. You know what's going on inside your own mind. And that's how you know certain things. It's through introspection. And I think free will is one of the things that we can observe through introspection. It seems like we have control over our minds. It doesn't seem like we are determined to act in the ways that we do with our mind. It seems like we have some kind of control over it, and exactly what that control is, we can talk more about it. But maybe I'll just say for now that I think by looking inward, introspecting on how our own minds operate, I think that gives us some evidence that there is free will.
Mm, yeah, I understand. I get that. I get what you mean by that. It's just you can't really control like what you react to things. Like, for example, what you just said just then, some person might instinctively react to that and be moved by it, whereas someone else might completely disagree with it. They don't choose to do that. They just have a certain emotion or feeling because of what someone else said. And you can't choose those emotions or choose those feelings. So how is that free will?
Well, I don't think it is. I don't think your feelings that you have in a moment are something that you choose. So, um, what exactly is it that we do choose? I don't. I'll say what I think it's not before I say what it is positively. So, like if I see someone pointing a gun at me, I turn my head and all of a sudden I see someone pointing a gun at me. I will immediately experience maybe shock, fear, surprise, some range of emotions, and I didn't choose to experience those emotions. I just did. So I don't think that's up to your free will. Not everything that happens in your mind is something that is up to you. So, um, what is up to you? Well, I think plausibly, and this is Ayn Rand's view, it's a view that I learned from Ayn Rand, your ability to focus your minds, and what exactly focus means is something we could talk about. So, by let me try to explain a little more by contrasting it with different types of mental states. So, when your mind is in focus, as Ayn Rand understands that, it's like saying it's in a ready state. You're ready to be aware of or to deal with anything that confronts you, as opposed to what? Well, as opposed to being in a state of mental drift, where you're not really in control. You're not in a state of readiness to deal with whatever confronts you. Maybe if you're just like scrolling on your phone through social media, you could be doing that purposefully and in a focused way, or you could be doing that in a drifting, mindless sort of way where you're not really in control. Um, you're really more in the grips of your emotions or your desires of the moments, um, rather than um, asserting the control of your rational faculty, your reasoning minds. If you're just going by emotion or desire, and letting your those dictate what you do, then I think you're not in focus. Um, so that's one contrast I would give to explain what I mean by being in focus, or what Ayn Rand means. When your reason is in control, I think then you are in focus. But if you're just allowing your emotions to control what you do or your desires, then I think you're not in focus. So I'll just leave it at that for now, and you can reply to that if you want.
Yeah. Well, I agree that those people obviously wouldn't be in focus and letting other things influence their thought. But when you say someone uses rational thought and that's when they're in focus, wouldn't that also mean that they're letting they're thinking rational thoughts based on their own thoughts that they think are rational? Like for example, um, say free will is being able to make choices independently prior to like any causes. If we assume that definition, then our experiences, my biological like dopamine receptors, stuff like that, those will influence my decisions, no? In that case, how is that free will? If
Okay.
my decision is influenced by something else that isn't my own autonomy.
I'm just making some notes here. So you mentioned a couple things I might want to comment on. The issue of causation or causes came up, and I think that's relevant here. And also, you talked about dopamine. So the idea is, there are certain things that cause us to use our minds in the way that we do. And you gave dopamine as an example of a causal
Hmm.
factor. And does that somehow show that we're not really free? I don't think so. I mean, I don't deny that there are causal factors, but um, being influenced by something, I think, is not the same as being determined. So I think there are preconditions of being able to use your free will. You need to have a brain, first of all. Like I don't think the lower organisms or the less evolved, the simpler organisms like birds and fish, chickens, I don't think they have free will. Um, uh, I guess it's arguable. It's more plausible that the nearest human relatives like primates might have some free will. Um, I don't I mean that's a debate one could have. I don't want to take a strong position on that, but um, I think there are different sorts of organisms, but not all of them have free will. Exactly where you draw the line is debatable. But I do think you need to have a certain kind of physiology, including a certain kind of nervous system and brain, in order to have free will, the kind that humans have. And it has to
Hmm.
be intact and functioning at a certain level. Like you can't be in a coma where your brain is not working properly, right? You're a vegetable in that state. But if your brain is working properly and you have a certain level of energy, um, like I guess if you're very low on energy, it might be harder to exert willpower and control your own minds. But assuming you're not like starving to death and you're well fed and you're not going on like 3 days with no sleep, then then I think you're in a position when you can control your mind. So there are preconditions of being able to exercise free will. So it doesn't just come out of nowhere that you're able to do this. However, I don't think the fact that there are some preconditions required to exercise free will means that you are now determined to do whatever you do. But let me stop there and give you a chance to reply.
Yeah, I kind of struggle to find the difference between in what influence is and what determinism is. I feel like they're both the same thing because if my choices are influenced by my biology and my upbringing and my past experiences, there is realistically no difference because just because I'm influenced doesn't mean I step outside of that causal chain of my neurotransmitters or my upbringing or like what I believe is good or bad. It just means that multiple causes are acting at me at once, and I don't get to freely choose whether they exist or not, how strong they are, or how I respond to those causal factors. So whether you call it influence or determinism, the result is really the same. My decision is also swayed by those influential factors that I don't control.
Okay. Well, let's try to take an example of what would be an influence. Like I think your parents can be an influence on you, your teachers, the people you hang around, your friends. Um, Also, the more general environment you grow up in, like the country you grow up in, can be a kind of influence. Like, are you raised in Saudi Arabia or United States of America? I think that your political environment that can have an influence. But why might you think, or why might one think that despite these factors, you are not determined? Well, I think one sort of example you can consider is people who are raised in very similar environments, like two people who two brothers, let's say. So they're raised together. They have the same genes. They could even be twins. So they have very similar genetic material and also their environments. So genes and environments are very similar. They're raised in the same household. Nature and nurture often are the terms that are used to describe like where the nature is like your DNA and the nurture is the sort of social influences on you. So the nature and the nurture or the genes and the environment can be very similar for these two brothers, but they could end up very differently. Maybe if they're in Saudi Arabia, let's say, maybe one becomes a radical Muslim terrorist, and maybe the other one rebels against Islam. He becomes a apostate, and he tries to escape his environments and come to America. So you can see this happen sometimes. People can have very different sorts of lives, even though their genetic and environmental influences are very similar. Well, what accounts for the differences? If the genes are basically the same, if the environment is basically the same, then I think that suggests that there's some third factor that's having an influence or an effect on the way people live their lives. And I think that's free will. And I think this is also introspectable. Like if you just, as I was talking about before, if you look in your own mind, it seems like you have control over yourselves. But you can also observe from the outside that, people end up very differently in the kinds of people they become, even though they had similar genes and environment. So I think that's some evidence that there is something other than these factors, which I would say are influences, but they're not determining. I think there's something else, free will, which plays a big role as well.
Yeah. Well, I do agree that twins can have different choices, like your example with those Saudi Arabian twins. But I think that's because I think that just proves that we're shaped by some complex web of causes, and not just like obvious ones like our genetics being the same and our family environment being good or bad, or being Muslim, for example. I feel like tiny differences, such as those twins, for example, one twin could be out in the park, and the twin that rebelled, that twin could have been bullied for being a Muslim, and that led to him having down the pipeline of rebelling against Islam. But the other one didn't experience that because he wasn't outside at the same exact time. So just because we can't map every cause doesn't mean they don't exist. I feel like what looks like freedom is just complexity beyond our ability to track, not the absence of determinism. For example, if I roll two dice from the same height at the same time and they land on the same floor and they still land differently, that doesn't mean that the dice has free will. It just means the conditions are more detailed than what we can capture.
Yeah, I see what you mean. So one word that came to mind here is unfalsifiable. Like I guess you can always say, well, maybe there's just uh, it's just too complex for us to track, but there really is a complete total determinism operating, and we just can't figure out what all the causes are. So we are mistaken to think there's actually free will. But then I wonder if it becomes an unfalsifiable sort of hypothesis or claim, like, is there anything that could convince you? Is there any empirical evidence or any kind of evidence that could convince you otherwise? Or can you just figure it out from the armchair, like so to speak, like without having to observe data? Is it just a philosophical argument for determinism, or is it a scientific
Um,
argument? Or go ahead.
it's it's more, yeah, I get what you mean by unfalsifiable, but it's not that it's unfalsifiable. It's more that you can find those you can find it, you can prove it, but it's so many minute things that will take a lot of effort to do it, and take a lot of effort to do it. For example, in your example of the twins, you can see that that twin might have been bullied, like I said earlier, but it doesn't mean that it didn't happen or it's just something that you can't prove. If you spectated both of their lives at the same exact time, you could see the differences between their lives and the micro experiences they experience and what encounters they have with other people, which led to them going on a path that you said. So I wouldn't technically call that unfalsifiable, if you get what I mean.
Okay. Um, I'm a little hazy on it, but maybe we can explore it more. Let me, maybe I should just say a little bit more about this concept of unfalsifiability. Um, so I don't know who originated this, but I think it's often
It
associated with Karl
was,
Popper.
yeah,
So he was a philosopher of science, and I think one of his ideas was that if there's no way to falsify something, like if there's no experiment that you could do that could even possibly show something as false, then that shows it's not really a valid hypothesis.
yeah. It's hypothesis
Because
testing. If a testable
you're
hypothesis can't be made, then
you're kind of putting it
you can't
beyond
find it.
beyond science. Like if you have a view of God where you define God in such a way that there's no possible way to disprove it, well, then that would be an unfalsifiable uh, God. But you might think that if something has that kind of status, then it's not really a valid hypothesis. So I haven't thought too much about that issue of unfalsifiability, but it was just something that came to mind that I thought maybe would be relevant here. And you were saying
Yeah.
that you don't think you wouldn't say that determinism is unfalsifiable. You just think it might take a lot of effort to identify all the causes
Mm.
that go into determining like how a certain twin turns out.
Yeah, I feel like free will is more unfalsifiable than determinism. There's a load of evidence that proves determinism scientifically, empirically, but free will, there's not really much empirical evidence to support free will besides our day-to-day life.
Okay. Um, I'm just thinking if I want to give you a chance to turn on your camera, actually, that's where my mind went because you seem okay so far. Do you want to turn on your camera? If you do, I'll give you a
Yeah,
chance.
that's fine. I should be gets going soon though, in like 5, 10 minutes. So
Oh, okay.
yeah, I'll turn on my camera.
All right.
That's fine.
Let me see if I can. I have to give you the permission in my Zoom settings. So where is that? Is it going to let me? Why is it? I don't see the.
I think you might have to click on me.
I did. I clicked on the. It gives
I'm not
me
too.
option to mute, chat, pin, but I don't see a video option. I know what to do. I think I figured it out. Uh, okay. I think now you should be able to.
Oh, yeah. Start my video.
Okay,
Hi,
there you go. Hi.
how are you?
I'm doing all right. How are you?
Wait, let me pull you up here. There we go.
Okay, so before we go on, I'm curious how you found out about my stream or channel.
Um, I just saw you on my recommended. I'm on call my friend right now. We just saw you. We just got curious because I've been reading upon philosophy a lot more as of recently because I might go into university for it, and so that's why you
Okay.
probably popped up on my page.
Okay. All right. So let's see, where were we? You were
I said
talking
free
about.
will is unfalsifiable.
Oh yeah, you said you think free will is unfalsifiable. Um, and you think determinism is not unfalsifiable. It's just hard to trace the causal chains to
Yeah.
figure out exactly how the determinism is happening. Um, okay, so I'm not sure. Well, let me consider the point that you made that free will is unfalsifiable. Um, I guess I don't know if I would want to agree to that. I don't know if I would want to say it is. Like, is there a way you could um, show that it's not true that humans have free will? Like, I wonder if something has the status of an axiom, it's a foundational piece of knowledge, and you can't get underneath it.
So it's a
And
presupposed like fact.
well, I don't know if I would use the term presuppose for something that is directly observed. Like, um, do I presuppose that I have a hand? well, I wouldn't say I presuppose it. I directly observe that I have a hand. Now, what I say it's unfalsifiable that I have a hand, like is in general, is sense perception unfalsifiable? I mean, how would you go about falsifying sense perception? I think it's the basis of knowledge. It's where our contact with the world starts. So I don't know what it would even mean to try to falsify the foundation of all your knowledge. I'm an empiricist, to use a term from the history of philosophy. I mean, I think, well, I guess there are different senses of that term, but if we take it to mean that knowledge starts with the senses, which I think it does, then you can't really get outside of that. You can't get underneath that and try to prove that sense evidence or that sensory material is valid. Um, and I think volition is similar to sense perception in that it's something you directly observe. It's not something you infer. Like I don't reason to the fact that I don't reach the conclusion that I have free will as a result of some argument. I think argument presupposes um, free will. So I don't know that you can falsify free will, but I don't take that to necessarily mean there's something wrong with the idea. So I don't want to imply, even though I did bring up the idea of falsifiability, I don't want to imply that I take that to be some standard that everything has to be able to meet in order to be valid. It was just something that I wanted to explore a little bit. But it looks like
Yeah.
you might have something to say. Go ahead.
No, not really. I mean,
Oh, okay.
uh, even if what you said is true, it's either determinism or free will. In that case, then if determinism wasn't falsifiable, then it's just that foundation, same as free will. If they one of them existed or the other, so it's just kind of a brick wall of like you can't really argue about that.
Well, let me just at least briefly mention there is also indeterminism. Now, many people think in the world
Never
of
heard of that.
quantum physics, there's actually not determinism at that level. There's just randomness, and not like it's just we don't understand. Like it's just
Like a
a lack
female
of
pattern.
knowledge, but rather metaphysically, the particles just behave randomly or probabilistically. Now, I don't necessarily agree with that. I don't really. I don't want to take a strong position on that, but I just wanted to say that free will and determinism, I think, are not the only options one could consider. I think one might also think that there's some amount of randomness in the universe. So at least if you're considering like the logical space, the possibilities that might exist, there's free will, determinism, and indeterminism or randomness. And I think they're each distinct types of causation. I don't think free will is randomness or probabilistic, or I think it's its own kind of causation. But we can set aside the indeterminism for now. I mean, we can just talk about
Yeah.
free will and determinism. And then there's this question of like, how do we decide between those? And I've said that I think there's at least introspective evidence for free will. And I remember you said you think there's scientific evidence for determinism. So we could explore that some, and I could ask you, like, what do you think is the scientific evidence for determinism?
Well, it depends. There's plenty. Which one do I pick? There's one study by Libet et al. And it was he asked people to make a decision, such as me raising my finger like this,
Yeah,
or picking up a ball. And he did I think it was an MRI scan while it was happening, and oh, it was a PET scan. It was a PET scan, and he found before they even thought of doing that action, 700 milliseconds before they even thought of doing it, some brain activity happened, and I don't know the full details of the study, but that's just one study.
Hmm.
So basically, the conclusion was that free will doesn't exist because if well, not the conclusion was that 700 milliseconds before you think of making a decision, um, your brain is already aware of that decision being
Hmm.
made. And some people use that as an argument to say that free will doesn't exist. There's also other studies about um, like practical studies, for example, the use of antidepressants. They reduce the human body, the human behavior down to neurotransmitters such as serotonin being like a relaxant, and they target antidepressants target those neurotransmitters to manipulate behavior, which shows that, for example, high levels of dopamine cause schizophrenia. In that case, um, sorry, that means they use that evidence to treat schizophrenia from drug treatments. They reduced it down to neurotransmitters and then based the evidence on that to use it practically, which is, I think that's an example of determinism because your behavior is determined by levels of dopamine. Or
Okay.
there's a multiple factors obviously, but
Hmm. Okay. All right. So on the Libet experiment, so I have read about those experiments. So for anyone who's not familiar, that if you want to look it up, it's the guy's name is spelled Libet. That's his last name. And he did experiments, I guess maybe in the 80s, somewhere around there. And he would ask people to move their finger at a certain time while they're watching a clock, and they're supposed to report on the time, like where the I don't know if they're watching a second hand go around, but they're supposed to report the time at which they made the decision to move their finger, and then that time is recorded. And meanwhile, they're hooked up. There's some electrodes attached to their
oh, was okay.
scalp to monitor brain activity. And what Libet, or however you pronounce his name, what he found is that there were certain brain events, certain activity, maybe it's increase in um, transmission of neuronal impulses, currents at a certain time, maybe like 400 milliseconds prior to the time that the person reports deciding to move their finger. So if they decide to move their finger at like when the second hand on the clock is at 37 seconds, maybe these electrodes, the activity that was detected on these electrodes that are hooked up to the brain showed that there was some uh, activity in the brain that occurred at 36.6 seconds, right? So a few hundred milliseconds before the person reports the choice. Now, many people have analyzed these studies. There's a book by a philosopher named Al Mele, Mele. He's at Florida State. He has a book called Free Will, and he discusses these experiments and he tries to debunk them and show how they don't really show what Libet thinks they show, or at least how many people interpret Libet. And I think Mealy actually does a good job. You might be interested in checking that book out. I think he does a good job at debunking these studies. So I think, if I recall
Who,
correctly,
sorry? Who'd you
his
say?
name,
Yeah.
Al Mealy or Alfred Mealy, Mele. He's written a lot of books on free will, and I don't know if actually I think that the title of this one is Free Will in Neuroscience. I think that's the title of the book where he talks a lot about the Libet experiments. And I think one thing he says, if I recall correctly, is that it's no surprise that there's going to be some activity in the brain shortly before you make your decision to move your finger. But because if you're deciding, whether to make this movement, maybe certain parts of the motor cortex, which are attached to the finger through your nerves, are going to be active and you're making a decision. So of course there's going to be some kind of activity. The activity doesn't come out of nowhere, but I guess the real question is like, is it possible that that activity happens in the brain and yet you don't move your finger? Or is it always the case that if there activity happens, that it's followed by finger movements? And if you only have the latter, I don't think that really establishes what you need to establish. This is laid out more clearly in the book, and I don't know if I'm doing justice to it. But I just want to say that um, those studies have been picked apart a lot, I think. And there's still people who fall down on both sides of that. Some people still think, oh yeah, that's evidence for determinism. But I think a lot of people have said, no, that doesn't really establish determinism. And so I just mentioned that as a resource you might be checking out, might be
Yeah,
interested to look into, or
I
anybody
will
else.
do. But yeah, thanks for the conversation though. I do need to
Oh yeah,
go.
you
But
said you had to go. Okay,
yeah,
yeah, thanks
yeah.
for calling. I
Thank you for the
appreciate the call.
conversation. I also do personally believe in free will. I was just having an I wanted to
Oh,
see what
okay,
you thought of it. But
okay. Play
it was a
devil's
good
advocate.
conversation. Yeah, pretty much.
Sure, sure.
Um, because I saw Alex O'Connor's view on it, and I was curious how you would explain that.
Oh yeah, I saw a debate recently with Alex O'Connor about free will, and I actually in that debate, Alex mentioned the Libet experiments and said that is not the grounds on which
Oh,
he.
did he? I
Yeah,
didn't know
so
that.
he has a more philosophical argument for free will. It's not based on some scientific study like the Libet stuff. So he briefly mentioned that.
All
But
right.
anyways,
But
thanks
yeah,
for calling in.
yeah, thank you. Have a nice night.
All right, you too. Bye. Okay, so that was Benji calling in about free will. And he said he actually believes free will is real, but he wanted to play devil's advocate and make the case for determinism. All right, coming back to the chat now. I see we've got some more chats in here. Latent Prion is here. John Wayne is here. Um, hello to you all. All right. I think I want to take a little break now. I've been going for about an hour and a half. And then I will come back and engage more with the chat. But oh, DJ Onyx is also here. New person, welcome. All right, so I'm going to take a break, maybe for like 7, 8 minutes, and then I'm going to come back and we can continue. I'll engage with some more of these chats, and who knows what else will come up. We'll see. I'm going to turn my mic and camera off, and this time I'm going to remember to cut the Zoom stream so that people who listen to the stream after the fact, they won't have to wait through the break for 7 or 8 minutes. It'll just go immediately to after I bring the Zoom stream back. But for the people who are here live, I don't know if you'll notice any difference on your end, but after I change my screen name, it's going to say Dan Norton when I turn off my camera, and then I'm going to change it to say Dan Norton will be back shortly. And then after it does that, I'm going to cut the Zoom stream, which maybe you won't notice at all any change on your end. You can let me know when I get back. But at least it'll be different for the people who watch this stream later. I think it'll mean they don't have to wait through the break. It'll just be automatically edited out. And then after the break, hopefully I'll be able to reestablish the Zoom stream. And it should be, I've tested this before, so I'm confident that I'll get the stream back and then we can talk some more. All right. I'm just going to write in the chat here. Back soon after a break. Okay. Thanks everyone for coming by. I encourage you to keep chatting and subscribe and share. And I'll see you soon. All right. All right, I am back. Welcome to everyone here welcome to the Dan Norton Show, where I discuss and debate Ayn Rand's philosophy of objectivism. We just had a discussion or debates about free will before the break, and let's see what else we're going to talk about today. See what else. Maybe it looks like you're talking in the chat, logically enough, about the issue of free will versus determinism. That's what we were just discussing. So let me look through some of your comments. Uh, where do I start? I think I left off where John Wayne came into the chat. He says, are you familiar with Craig Biddle and his debate with Alex O'Connor? Yes, I actually watched that debate. That's the one I was referencing when I was telling Benji on the call before the break that I saw a debate with Alex O'Connor in which he mentioned that his reasons for being a determinist were not the ones uh, based on Libet's experiments. Yeah, it was Alex O'Connor's debate with Craig Biddle. I saw that debate recently, and uh, I've known about both of them. I have known about Craig for much longer. Alex, I just started to watch some of his content in the last couple years or so. But yeah, for Craig, I've known of him for many, many years. Um, and you say, what do you think of him, or what did you think of the debate? Uh, are you asking about Alex there? When you say him, who does him refer to Craig or does him refer to Alex? Um, I don't know if you're still here, John. Maybe if I look further down in the chat, I'll see if you're still here. I don't see any ones after that. You can let me know if you're still here. Um, I guess for as for what I thought of the debate, I enjoyed watching it. I'm much more on Craig's side. I mean, Craig was defending the view that we do have free will. Alex is the determinist. So I was on Craig's side, and I thought Craig made some good points. One in particular I remember liking was it was a reply to Alex's point that we're forced by reason. Like if logic or reasoning tells you that 2 + 2 is 4, you can't just choose to believe that 2 + 2 is not 4, or think that 2 + 2 is 7 or a million, right? So we're forced by our reason to accept certain conclusions. That was a point Alex made, and I think Craig countered that by mentioning the phenomenon of evasion. So that's where you grasp that something is true, but you're pushing it out of your mind and you're refusing to accept it. And this is the cardinal sin in objectivism is to evade. And this is another kind of mental state. Uh, in addition to the two I mentioned before on the call with Benji, I said there was free will where you're in control of your mind, and then there's drift where you're not in control of your mind. You're just being pushed around by emotions or desires. But in addition to free will and control, in addition to control, which I take to be another way of saying free will, although I might have a bit more to say about that, but let me just set that aside for now. In addition to control and AKA free will and drift, there's also evasion, where um, it's not drift, like you're not just being buffeted around um, kind of purposelessly. You're deliberately trying to do something. You have a purpose. So if you're acting in a purposeful way, that's you can contrast that to acting to being in a state of drift. Drift is supposed to suggest purposelessness, right? You don't have a purpose. You're just kind of floating on the sea of you're being buffeted around by the currents. But you have a very purposeful mental state when you're evading, but it's not to be aware of reality. It's actually the opposite. You know something is real, but you're purposefully pushing it out of your mind. So you might see logically that 2 plus 2 is 4, but you deliberately try to evade that fact. I don't know why you would want to evade that in particular. There might be other more better examples of actual evasion, like maybe you suspect you have good evidence to believe that your romantic partner has cheated on you, and it would be really painful to confront this fact. Maybe you're married to the person, or you've been in a relationship with a long time, but then you find out that there's some evidence that makes you think, oh, it seems like this person is probably cheating. And that's just too painful to you to confront. And so you push it out of your mind, say, no, that can't be true. That I'm sure I'm just maybe you invent some rationalization like she's done so many good things or he's done so many good things in the past. He couldn't possibly do that. That would be so out of character. I can't believe that. I can't believe he or she would do something like that. But you have good evidence. Maybe you saw, something on her phone or some suspicious hairs in the bathroom, or I don't know what the evidence is, but maybe there's a bunch of evidence, maybe different kinds of evidence, all pointing to this conclusion. And it's just really painful for you to confront this fact, so you evade it. So that is a real thing. Um, and I thought I remember liking when Craig made this point as to how we're not forced by reason in a way. I mean, maybe it's kind of one of these yes and no sorts of uh, cases. Like, in a sense, yes, we are forced by reason. Like, if you confront the facts, if you are in focus, then you will have to believe whatever reason tells you is true or whatever logic tells you is true. But if you're not in focus, if you're not trying to be aware of reality, if you allow something like some emotion to override your reason, like your fear of finding out that it's true that your longtime partner has cheated on you, if you allow your emotions to be the drivers in your mind rather than in your reason, then you there's a in that sense you can escape the conclusions of reason. But but which of these two things you do is up to you. And I think Craig also made that point, like whether you do have reason in the driver's seat or emotion is in the driver's seat, that's the ultimate choice. And I made this point in the call with Benji, and I think Alex had some counter to that, but I don't recall what it was. Maybe I'll go back and listen to it. But I just remember that was one point of the debate that I liked. I thought that was a good point that Craig made. Um, and then John says, why are so many people anti-free will? It's really weird to me because out of all the things people disagree with Ayn Rand, such as selfishness, the idea of free will seems much more benign. Well, I think a lot of people do appeal to science, like this Benji who called in. He cited these Libet experiments, even though it turned out he was just playing devil's advocate. He didn't really. He said he actually believed in free will himself. Many people do at least claim to believe in free will, to believe in determinism and oppose free will on the grounds of science. But I mean, opposition to free will has existed long before these recent scientific experiments by Libet. I mean, he was doing these in the 80s, but it's not like determinism first came on the scene in the 80s. Philosophers and people in general have been determinists for centuries or millennia. So even before the birth of modern science, like in the ancient Greek world, there were determinists. Democritus, I think, might have been the first determinist in the ancient Greek world. And I don't know when he lived, sometime in the BCs, maybe 500 BC or something. Um, some people might find comfort in determinism because they think it absolves them of responsibility for their actions. Maybe they think like, oh, well, you can't blame me for anything I do or for screwing up my own life because, well, I didn't have any control. It wasn't up to me. And maybe it's comforting to them to think that they weren't responsible for it. Um, so, so it could be a kind of rationalization for some people. They don't want to be held responsible, and so they are drawn to determinism. It gives them emotional comfort. Which is not to say everyone is like that. Maybe there are different motivations. Maybe some people believe in determinism for irrational or dishonest kind of reasons, where it's really driven by an emotion or desire. So they just want to believe it for the kind of reason I was just giving, because it makes them feel less bad about um, living the way they live, perhaps. But maybe other people have a honest belief in it. Maybe they don't know how to address certain arguments that allegedly appeal to science, like the Libet experiments. Or there might be philosophical arguments. Like I said, Alex O'Connor, he has a different grounds for believing uh, in determinism. Maybe some people are convinced by those philosophical arguments. Like maybe people think that if something is not determined, then it has to be random, and that's not really free will. If you're just acting in random ways, and maybe they don't recognize as a third way of acting, a third kind of causation in addition to determinism and randomness, or determinism and indeterminism. Um, but you might think, well, shouldn't everyone have at least some evidence that there's free will, like just introspectively, everyone can observe this. But there are arguments that could be an illusion, and Alex O'Connor made this point in the debate. Sometimes um, there can be an illusory force, like this centrifugal force. I think that was his example, where I guess if you're going in a circular motion, uh, it might feel as though there's a force that's pulling you towards the center, when in fact there's not. I forget exactly how the example worked, but he gave an example of an illusory force. So just because it seems like there's some power we have to control things, doesn't mean it's real, right? So maybe people are persuaded by those sorts of arguments, or at least they don't know how to answer those sorts of arguments. I'm not even sure what I would say to that. I hadn't thought of that sort of arguments against free will before. The idea, or this analogy to maybe it's like a centrifugal force. Um, I haven't thought about that one before. So I guess I could try to think about that off the top of my head now. Um, but maybe it'd be better to do that later. Mm. But let me look at the chat, see what else is going on here. Maybe I'll come back. Actually, I'm at least going to make a note about that. Oh, I forgot to cut the Zoom stream. That was something I was going to do during the break that I didn't do. Okay, well, I guess people watching the stream afterwards are going to have to wait through the break. Well, they don't have to wait for the break. They can, of course, just zoom ahead, and maybe I'll put timestamps in the description to make it easier to do that. But hopefully, I'll remember to do that in the future. All right, so I'm just making a note about centrifugal force. There's also centripetal, which sounds similar, but it's different. I get those confused. Centripetal and centrifugal force, and I forget which one Alex was mentioning, but I'll look that up later. A centrifuge is where something spins and then it pushes you out towards the edges. Like there's some rides on amusement parks which are like that. Maybe that was it because there's not actually a force emanating from the center, which is pushing you out, but it feels like there is one. Rather, there's a force which is, I guess, tangent to the uh, to the circle, and then there's the rotational motion, but there's not a force pushing you straight out. Maybe that was it. I'll maybe I'll have to get clear on that later. Okay, so we got some more chats from DJ Onyx. I want to get to him because I haven't given his comments any time yet, and he's a new person. But let me just quickly. Actually, yeah, I'll make a note. I got up to 12:33 p.m. in the chat. So that's where I'm going to go back to after I skip ahead to look at some of DJ Onyx's chats. Um, okay, so he says, his first chat, he says, we constantly live in the immediate past. We can never experience the raw data before it is processed by our nerves. So we act as somewhat receivers. The fact that we exist in time, which requires memory slash data, is a fact. Maybe you mean is evidence that we live in a deterministic reality. And then there's a little exchange between Robert and DJ Onyx. Maybe I'll just call him Onyx for short. Robert says, why are they anti-free will? They can't help themselves. It's not like they have a choice. Then Duitse says, is there a link between determinism and being religious? Many religions are deterministic, or at least um, maybe they're contradictory. Maybe they believe in both free will and determinism. Some religions, like in Christianity, God is supposed to be omniscient, which and he can foretell the future. He has foreknowledge of the future. But if that's true, can you really have free will? Is it really up to you what you do if God already knows in advance what you do? So there's this this problem of reconciling free will with divine foreknowledge, which many theologians have wrestled with. And they want to say you have free will, like it's not God's fault if someone does something evil. You can't blame evil on God. God gave us free will. On the other hand, God knew what we were going to do in advance, and he's all powerful. So he could have stopped us from doing something evil like committing a murder. So is and he's supposed to be all good, right? Omnibenevolent, right? So would God, if he knew in advance something evil was going to happen, is he really benevolent if he let it happen and he could have stopped it from happening or made something else happen? Onyx says to Robert, if you have free will slash agency, why didn't you self? I think there's a typo here. Maybe choose? Why didn't you choose the exact kind of body you wanted to have from birth? It says, why did you self the exact kind of body? But I don't think that makes sense. So maybe you meant to type something else. Um, then he says, outside of memory, data, information, you have no identity. Perception created by nerves create your whole reality. You never experience life outside of your nervous system. All you experience is what is processed, which isn't in your control. All right, so it sounds like Onyx is a determinist, unless he's just plain devil's advocate, like Benji was. Do you have any sense that you have control? Actually, this is a point I wanted to make before. I said I was going to set aside some point I had in mind about control. So let me make it now. So I was thinking there are different kinds of control. At at one point I was thinking, well, maybe free will is just another term for control. But then I thought, well, don't animals seem to have control, at least in a certain way? Like a dog uh, or a cat, uh, maybe they're maybe a cat is hunting a mouse, and it's being very deliberate in the way it's creeping up on it, very inch by inch, and you might say that the cat has very good control of its body. It's very agile, right? It can balance itself very well on a narrow surface, or she might think the cat has great control over its movements. So does the cat have free will now? Um, well, I think like compared to a leaf being blown around in the wind, right? It doesn't seem like the leaf is in control of itself in the way that the cat is in control of itself. So I think there is a sense in which animals can have control, but I think it's more they have control over their bodies, um, not over their minds. So I think they're like a cat's movements. It's it's dictated by its perceptions, what it sees and hears and smells. Um, I think it's dictated by the bodily movements of the cat are controlled by the what it sees and its desires. Like it has a desire. It's hungry, let's say, and wants food, and it sees this mouse, and its perceptions and its desires interact with its physiology. It's like the perceptions enter its senses, and then it gets processed by the brain, and then certain signals get sent out to the motor cortex so it can control its movements. So there is a kind of control. It's not like the leaf being blown around by the wind, where the source of the control is entirely outside the leaf. like, but in the cat, there's something inside the cat. It's got a brain which is processing this sense data coming into it, and then it has connections through its motor neurons out to its limbs. Um, and the cat doesn't have any of that. Sorry, the leaf doesn't have any of that kind of internal structure. However, I don't think the cat controls its own consciousness, right? It can be reactive to things that are interacting with its consciousness, its perception, but it doesn't have that ability that humans have to control their own minds, to throw on the switch of reason, so to speak, to activate their rational minds, as opposed to being solely driven by their desires, their emotions, or their perceptions. So when you have that kind of internal control, not just control over your body, but control over your minds, whether to activate that. I mean, the cat doesn't have any reason to activate. It doesn't have a rational faculty which can be activated as opposed to its desires and its perceptions. But human beings do have a rational faculty, and that doesn't act automatically. That's up to us to activate, I think, introspectively. And so we don't just have the control over our bodies, we can control our minds. And I think you can call that volitional control. So does the cat have control? Well, yes and no. This is one of those yes and no cases. In a sense, it has control, but I don't think it has control, like ultimate control, in the way that human beings do, where they can control their consciousness. We are beings of volitional consciousness. That's a point that Ayn Rand makes. Other organisms like cats, they have consciousness, but not volitional consciousness. Okay. So um, DJ Onyx looks like he's put a couple more chats in. He says, I'm definitely a determinist. However, my thing is determinism only exists within time. Outside of time, determinism cannot exist. Why? Because technically you cannot exist outside of time because there is no memory slash data slash information. Well, I'm curious what you think about introspective evidence for free will. Like, does it seem to you like you're determined, or does it seem to you like you have control over yourself? Um, Now, I'm curious what you think about that. Some people will deny there's even a seeming of free will. I think Sam Harris is one such person. Like many determinists will say, yeah, I grant that it seems on introspection like we have this power of free will, but on further reflection, we can reasonably conclude that it's just an illusion. It's not really genuine. So we can't take that introspective evidence at face value. But then there are some people like Sam Harris and a guy who I debated on my channel maybe a couple of years ago or so, Aaron Rabinowitz, if you want to look up that debate. They deny that there's even an appearance of free will. It doesn't even seem like we have free will. Um, so maybe how I engage with you here will depend on where you fall between those two views. Like, do you think there's at least some evidence, like when we introspect, that we're not determined, that we do have control over ourselves? Um, or would you deny there's even that appearance? If you deny there's even that appearance, then I don't know if there's any further discussion to be had, because then you're just, I guess, denying the the raw data, and so we don't really have a basis for further discussion. We have to be on the same page somewhere um, to have a basis for discussion. But if we're just at completely different points, then I don't know if there's a way to bridge the gap. I don't know if you can even get the idea of free will if it weren't real. Like, where would you get the idea of determinism? It's by contrast to free will that you understand what it is. Um, just like I've said before about the fish swimming in the water, it's not aware of the water because the water is all it's exposed to. But if you suddenly take the fish out of water and it sees air, now by contrast, it says, "Oh, now I know what water is. I've been swimming in it my whole life." Well, likewise, if you've been swimming, so to speak, in determinism your whole life, how do you even have any concept of it, of what it is? What is it referring to? But if you can say it picks out this as opposed to this other thing, now all of a sudden, okay, now I know what you're talking about. So I think we have free will and we observe that, but we observe some things are not under our control, like someone grabs your arm, right, and pulls it. Maybe your parent does this to you as a child, and you can observe there's a difference. Like you didn't make your arm move, your parent made it move. That's different than when you move it voluntarily yourself. So you have this contrast and you have this idea that I can initiate certain behaviors, but there's also behaviors I can do, my arm can move, which I did not initiate. So you have a contrast, which I think helps give you this idea of free will and determinism. They're kind of correlates. Maybe you need each to get the other. Um, so if everything is determined, as the determinists say, well, where does the determinist even get the idea of determinism? By contrast to what? What enabled you to pick this out as a phenomenon to focus on and give it some meaning, were it not for the fact that you observe something which at least appears to be different, which appears to be not free, not determined. So I guess that's one reason to be skeptical of these people who claim that there's not even an illusion of free will. Um, how did they get the idea of determinism? Um, except by contrast to this appearance of free will. All right. So there's some thoughts on DJ Onyx's chats. Um, maybe I'll scroll back up. I'm wondering if I should get a bite to eat. Starting to feel a little hungry. Um, or I could just end the stream and wait. Actually, let me just read through some more of these chats quickly, at least, and then decide if I want to take a break to. I guess I could eat on stream too. I don't necessarily have to take a break for that. But let me look at some more of these chats. Robert has some chats. I think Yaron Brook just started a show at, well, not just, but 45 minutes ago at 1 o'clock p.m. Pacific. So, and I know Robert sometimes listens to Yaron. Maybe, I don't know if he's still here or if he went over to Yaron's show. Or maybe he's listening to both back and forth. I see another couple chats just came in. Motley H and DJ Onyx. Um, Latent Prion says, do you think dogs have free will? Full disclosure, I do, he says. I don't think dogs have free will. No. I think they plausibly are like the cat I was describing. They have perceptions and then they have desires, and those desires and perceptions dictate how they act, or at least are some of the main causal factors dictating how they act, but I don't know that there's evidence. I'm not aware of evidence that dogs have free will. What would be your evidence? Like if sometimes people say like if a dog or a cat is just pausing and looking intently at something, you might think it's deciding what to do. Um, like maybe the dog is looking at some food and it wants to eat it, but it also knows it's not his master has not given him the signal that it's time to eat. Maybe he knows that he'll get punished. He'll be spanked or something if he goes for the food now, like before waiting for his master to give him some signal or say something like, "Okay, it's time to eat." So the dog might have these conflicting emotion or desires. Like on the one hand, he wants the food. On the other hand, he's scared of getting beaten. So one is pushing him towards the food, the other is pulling him away. So there's kind of this balance going on, and maybe one will overtake the other. But just because an animal is not moving and is staring intently on something doesn't mean it's deciding or choose making a choice about what to do. It could just be that it has these two conflicting desires, and neither one is strong enough to beat out the other. Well, I guess if it's just the desire that's keeping the dog not going towards the food is stronger, so long as it just stays in position. But if all of a sudden the dog does go for the food, then it just means the other desire overcame the desire not to be beaten. But it's all just a combination of desires. It doesn't mean it made a choice at a certain point. Now, I think it gets a little more tricky if you deal with something closer to a human being, like a chimpanzee, like the closest, the smartest primate other than humans. There, I think it becomes a little more plausible that maybe there's some elements of free will or proto free will. Um, but I'll just leave it at that for now. Um, Robert says, I'm always curious how intelligent determinists answer the contradiction of determinism. How is it that they believe they've freely and independently reached a correct conclusion that determinism is true? I think Alex O'Connor was confronted with the contradiction of determinism, at least in some form, in the debate with Craig Biddle that recently occurred and that I discussed a bit earlier. And I don't recall exactly what he said, um, but you might be interested in checking that out. Um, and Duitse says, sometimes it's difficult to use true free will due to an emotional state, but you can always analyze a past situation and mentally prepare to react differently the next time. One thing you can do is observe how emotional you are at a given time. Like you might be very by introspection you can observe like am I feeling very strongly about something right now, or am I feeling very calm? And if you if you observe that you're highly emotional right now, um, then you might think, okay, well, now is not a good time to make any big important decision, I should wait until I'm more calm. So even if it's difficult at a given time to use free will, well, I don't know if I would want to put it like that. Like, can it be harder and easier to use free will at a given time, or is it just that what free will amounts to in those times when you're very emotional is that you need to recognize that fact that you are very emotional and maybe hold off on making some important decision. Um, Maybe someone says something online on social media, and maybe you wrote a comment and they replied in a way that was rude, and you have this immediate emotion which makes you want to comment back and say something rude to that other person, but senses, I don't want to stoop to their level and engage in, I don't want to go down in the gutter with them. Um, so but you have a choice in that moment. Do I just let my emotions dictate what I'm going to do, or do I just take a step back and consider it? Should I reply to this person right now? If so, how? Or should I not? Should I give it some time to cool down and have a more measured response? That's something which is up to you. So maybe this is a case where now you say the Duitse difficult to use free will due to an emotional state. Um, I don't know if I would put it that way. Um, because you still have free will in that moment. Like when something makes you angry, this comment you saw directed at you on social media, is it hard I mean, you still have the power to give into your immediate desire to reply back or not. And it's up to you whether you exercise some restraint and make sure you're in control. I'm reluctant to sign on to the idea that it's difficult to use free will because I think that I mean there are some times when like I was saying before, you need to have a certain amount of energy. Like if you haven't slept for 3 days straight, you your brain is not going to be functioning optimally, and you need to go to sleep so you can rest your brain and get the energy you need to control your mind. And maybe a very strong emotional event can have a similar effect. Like maybe it's just as it's hard to control your mind when you're sleep deprived. Likewise, it's hard to control your mind when you're in a very emotionally charged situation. Um, I guess the thing to do when you're in that situation is just to do whatever you need to do to get to a state where you can exert, where you can act in a rational way. So if you're sleep deprived, the thing to do is to sleep if you can, if that's an option. And if you're highly emotional, maybe the thing to do is to just not act, um, not do that immediate reply on social media. Unless like, it's you have to act, and maybe there's some context where it's like an emergency and you have to give some immediate reply. But if the situation does not demand some immediate reply, I think probably the better thing to do if you're highly emotional is to wait until the emotion subsides so that you can be confident that you can deal with the situation in a rational way. You made a comment on my video, actually. This reminds me. I think I'm going to share this on because I think it's on topic about how I was calm during that debate that we got 934 subscribers. Great. We picked up three new subscribers during the stream. Thank you. Um, I got to share my screen so you can see what I was. Yeah, I was just going to my channel so I could show this video where Duitse made a comment. And when I went to my channel, I saw that it went up from it was at 931 and now it's at 934. So I just saw that. Great. Excellent. Thank you. So here's our live stream. Free will. Hey, that just happens to be our first topic that I listed in the title, not knowing if we were going to talk about it. I was just putting something there, various parts of objectivism, which maybe would come up, and maybe that's why some people thought to raise it in the chat. But anyways, that's our current live stream. But here, if we go to the videos tab, that's where my pre-published non-live stream videos live. And here's the debate that I published a couple days ago with Jolah from Jolah Politics. And uh, Duitse put a comment. Actually, two people commented on this um, about calmness. Yeah, so this person, Goldmos one, um, just making sure this is showing up correctly on the stream. Yeah. Okay. I'm pulling it up on my phone as well. Why is it showing my behind the scenes window? That's weird. Maybe I clicked the wrong. Hold on, let me stop this screen share. I think I might have shared the wrong window. Let me try this again. Or maybe I have multiple. Okay, let me try this. Okay, should be able to see Jola here on screen in a second. Okay. Yeah, so here's and I don't know if you saw the subscribers thing that I was pointing at. So yeah, it says 934. Um, and then I went over to this video that I published a couple days ago to show you some of the comments. And this person, Goldmos1, says that was painful. The debate the debate was painful, not having a clear understanding of the term. Maybe he means the term capitalism, because that term was used in the debate. He says not having a clear understanding of the term is quite frankly why I don't like talking or debating with people who have a strong opinion but no integration. It frustrated me so much. Good thing that you kept your calm. And then Ryan Ward says, great composure, Dan, which is pretty similar, kind of like saying you were keeping your calm. Now, Ducey made a comment, which, why isn't it showing up here? Oh, maybe I have to select new because sometimes it doesn't show all of the comments unless you click newest. Oh, no, maybe the fourth one is just my reply. So maybe I have to approve the comments before they appear publicly to everyone. And I did approve Dutsy's, but maybe for some reason YouTube didn't recognize that. Let me try to approve it right now. See if I can get it to show up here. Okay, I just approved it. So let me refresh this. Okay, yeah, now it says 5 comments. And if where is newest first? Okay, here's Duitse's. Yeah, she says that was difficult to listen to. Glad to see you were able to remain calm. So I got 3 comments here about calmness. So that was what I was thinking. Like if you see something on social media that makes you very emotional, you can step back and be calm. And I try to do that in debates. Like if someone says something that gets me angry, I try to remain calm because I don't think it's very useful to having a productive discussion to just um, get very emotional and say things that you don't really mean, maybe get insulting or rude. Now, I've had a lot of practice with this, so I didn't really have a temptation. Like it wasn't hard for me to remain calm. I've just done so many of these, and I've it's been just my part of my personal philosophy for so long to try to be rational and engage in a way that's rational and not driven by emotion. And maybe just having a lot of experience with this helps me to remain calm. Um, but I don't know if I would say is it easier for me to remain calm than it is for other people? Maybe. Like maybe if I were 17 years old or 18, it would be much harder. I remember I used to get in a lot more heated discussions when I was that age, when I first got into objectivism. Oh, let me also give this a love there. Um, so, but I don't know if that's just because when I was younger, I had less knowledge or just I just don't think it's worth it, like getting angry. Because I remember after about 6 months or a year, I don't know how long it was when I first got into objectivism at the age of 17, 18, it just wasn't fun. I wasn't enjoying it, having these very confrontational, antagonistic discussions with people. Um, I just didn't enjoy it. And I didn't want to go through life, or at least much of my life, since, philosophy is a big part of what I do. I like to engage in discussion. I didn't want to have a large part of my life just be unpleasant and nasty and being in these um, very antagonistic discussions with people. It didn't seem conducive to a happy, benevolent sort of life. Uh, so I decided to, if I'm going to be in a discussion with someone, I want to be an egoist. I want to enjoy the experience. And if I'm not enjoying it because it's just a nasty argument, then I'm not going to be part of it. I'm going to step away. Um, so uh, there you got to see some of my related comments here on my last stream. All right, I'm going to stop the screen share now. Come back to the chat. Duitse says, but the debate is. Oh, she said she modified her comment. Maybe that's why it disappeared. I think even if you edit your comment, I'll still see it. I'll just see it modified. Oh, actually, yeah, maybe that is what happened. I didn't approve the modified version, thinking that maybe YouTube just didn't recognize that I approved it the first time. But maybe there was some small change you made to it and I didn't notice it. Where I thought YouTube would just maybe it just took a while for my approval of the comment to take effect. But yeah, if you actually changed it, then that would explain, I think, why it reappeared for asking me if I want to approve it. I think that's what happened. Good to know. Okay. And you say, but the debate is a great watch if you need to get your blood pressure up. Okay. Yeah, maybe for some people at least it will help with that. Oh, evolutionary capitalism is here, or evolutionary, as I called him for short. It's been a while since I've seen him. Duitse says, I think the other person in the debate was nice enough, but his arguments were all over the place. Yeah, it was a civil debate, which I appreciated. It's quite different than my debates with Sam Cedar, where he tries to mock and ridicule, and his whole show. It's not just him, his co-host Emma, and the guy off screen, which you don't always see, the producer Matt Leck. Um, I wouldn't say those are really civil. I mean, to a certain point, they are. Like they're not hurling profanity at me. Um, I've seen much worse, for sure. But I've also seen much better. And yeah, I would definitely say the debate with Jola was much better than those debates I have with Sam Cedar on the Majority Report. All right, let me see what else is going on here in the chat. See where I left off. So this person, Motley H, new person, hello. Looks like this might be his first chat. Says it's not only normal, it's not a, sorry, it's not only real, but it's biologically necessary for survival. What is free will? Um, you say, and then he says it is an evolved trait for animals too that is rooted in causality. Do you mean free will there? Is that the referent of it? So I'm up to 146 in the chat. Um, let's see. Onyx, DJ Onyx says, LOL, through polarity, we understand that because their negative is there. Again, I think there might be typos here. Um, there must be positive because there is memory. There must be no memory because there is time. There must be no time. Oh, you're talking about the contrast point I was making. Like the only way to get the idea of determinism would be by contrast to something that is not determinism, like free will. Um, so that's what he's must be reacting to with this comment. Let me read it again now that I understand a little better what he's talking about. He says through polarity, or maybe I'll say through contrast, we understand that because there is negative, there must be positive. Because there is memory, there must be no memory. Because there is time, there must be no time. Oh, let me plug my computer cord in. I'm running low on battery. Don't want the stream to crash in the middle. Okay, I'm plugged in now. Uh, okay, so is this a counterexample of some sort that you're trying to make here? Like, because there is time, there must be no time. Well, there might be some other kind of contrasts, like time and space. Often those are mentioned together. So I don't know if there's a way to contrast time with space, and maybe that's how you get that's the contrast you use to get to the idea of time, or do you, is there some other sort of contrast you need to get the idea of time? Like maybe you can say um, it took an hour to drive to the nearest uh, store that had the product you wanted to buy, and then you can just say, okay, well, it took half an hour to drive half the distance, assuming you're just going on a straight road, same speed limit. And it took a quarter of the time to drive a quarter of the distance. And maybe you can just kind of mentally project what the contrast was, and you can just like get the idea of no time just by abstracting. Okay, if we take this, if we go all the way back, then it took zero time. So maybe that's no time, and that can be your contrast to the idea of time. I'm not sure. So maybe in the case of some contrasts, you don't need an actual metaphysical existence to get the idea of it, but you can get the idea of it some way, some other way. I don't know if you're alluding to a point along those lines, but maybe you can let us know in the chat. Oh, Robert says he's listening to both shows and taking care of both my show and your on show, and he's taking care of chores, multitasking for the win. Okay. I wonder how you listen to both shows. Like, what do you do? Do you listen to 5 minutes of one and then 5 minutes of the other? Or like, how do you decide when to switch back and forth? I assume you can't listen to both simultaneously, like one in each ear, because then you can't really understand anything. Um, unless you have some good ability to like shift your focus. I guess like if you're in a public place where you have people talking on both sides of you, you can shift your attention to one side or the other. Maybe actually we do this sometimes. Like if you're at a social event, a party or something, a conference, and people are hanging around talking, and you're in groups, little subgroups, and maybe there's a conversation going on one side of you, and then another conversation going on the other side, and you can shift your attention back and forth between the two. Like maybe you hear something really interesting over here, and then you temporarily start focusing on that, and then you hear something interesting over here, and so maybe Robert is doing something like that, or maybe he has some other method of listening to both shows at the same time. Motley says they do. You mean animals? Oh, yeah, I guess you mean animals do have free will. I think that's what you mean. You say any animal that relies on mobility has free will. It's not mythical. Why? Why does having mobility mean you have free will? Can't you move in a deterministic way, just guided by your desires and your perceptions? Greg Lewis says Dan Norton will be back shortly. Is displayed on the lower left-hand side of the broadcast. Oh, I forgot to change my name back. Thanks. Yeah, that's my screen name on Zoom is what I had put up. I changed it to that for the break, but now that I'm back, I can change my screen name back to Dan Norton. Thanks for reminding me. I got to get in the habit of doing that. Okay, it's fixed now. Duitse says, I asked a horse specialist if a horse would refuse to try and jump over an obstacle if a human orders it to jump, but the horse knows it can't clear the obstacle. Apparently, it depends on the horse. Okay. I think I've seen something similar. Like if you're riding a horse and it goes up to a cliff, the horse doesn't just keep running off the cliff. It'll stop. At least I've seen this on TV. I don't know if I would, and it seems plausible. I don't think it's just like a trick, a camera trick or anything. Um, yeah, I guess there's some things which you just can't override because they're just so hardwired into the animal that you can't override it with an order, which doesn't mean it's doing it freely. Maybe it's hardwired into it. It's just it's determined to stop at the edge of a cliff or to not try to jump over some obstacle if it thinks that or if it believes it can't clear it. But maybe other things, it's like if a dog is trained to not drool. Actually, this came up in the movie with a Tom Hanks movie. I think it was Turner and Hooch. Was that the movie from decades ago? Like this dog was terribly trained, and like it would do that kind of thing. And like this drool would come out of its mouth, like saliva is like going everywhere. But I think it was trained not to do that. And but then I think the Tom Hanks was trying to untrain it for some reason. I forget why. And so it would do that thing again. And maybe it's like maybe that's a case where if you order Hooch the dog to, shake its head and make saliva spray all over the place, it won't do it because it's been trained not to. But if you keep ordering it to, maybe if you do it enough, it will kind of override its training. So there are some things which can be like more or less hardwired. Like maybe there are some things like going off the cliff where no matter how much ordering you try to do, no matter how much you try to untrain the thing from doing that, it's just gonna not go off the cliff or not try to clear the jump over the obstacle. Um, TJ Onyx says, "Do you have Discord, Dan?" I don't have my own Discord server, but I'm on Discord. I mean, I have an account. You can find me on Discord. Um, actually, if I can tell you what my Discord name is. If you want to look me up, I don't remember like if you need the numbers after someone's name, because I think maybe you do, but I can tell you what it is. I just want to make sure I have the numbers right. I'm trying to go to my profile on Discord. Okay, here we go. So my Discord name is Dan Norton # 25982. I guess I can put this on screen. Uh, just a sec, make sure. Okay. Yeah, I will. I'll share this screen for a second. Maybe some of you aren't familiar with Discord uh, or don't use it, but I think it has some good uses. Okay. All right. So now you should be able to see my profile on Discord. So it's got three different versions of my name. So there's that. But then there's this this version without a space, all lowercase. But I think that might be a newer version. Like the old version, they had these numbers attached to it. Oh yeah, it says originally known as Dan Norton hashtag 2592. And I don't know if that might be what you have to do if you want to search for someone on Discord. Maybe you need that unique identifier, the numbers. Otherwise, there might be a ton of Dan Nortons. Um, but and I think there's probably a space between my first and last name um, in that version with the number at the end of it. So, anyways, if you search for that, maybe that'll help you find me on Discord. So that is another way you can connect with me. So here you can see some Discord chat. I don't know what server this is in. Um, I don't want to share that though. I don't know what those people are talking about. Um, but lots of streamers have their own Discord server. So, like Yaron Brook, actually, he has a Discord channel, just like there are YouTube channels. There are in Discord they don't call them channels. I think they call them servers. So there's a Discord server for the Yaron Brook show, and you can join that and hang out with people, chat with them, and it's like a 24/7, 365 kind of venue. It's not like the live streams where it's only happening at the time of the stream. It's just open all the time. You can go in there anytime and chat. And I mean, there might not be anyone else chatting at 3 in the morning, but maybe there will be. But it's always available to participate in. So it's got some it's got a different set of features, and um, you might want to check that out. Sometimes if I want to get into a discussion with people, I go on there um, because you can have a real time back and forth. Whereas like if you go on X or Twitter, you can post a comment, but a lot of times people they just see this comment and ignore it, and then they scroll to the next X posts. It's less likely, I think, often that you get engagement on on X. But if you go on Discord, there's often other people who are there live who are looking for to have conversations. Um, and there's also voice channels. It's not just text chat. Many channels they're set up to have voice channels as well. Um, so you can actually talk with people through Discord. And many streamers use it for when they do their live streams. Like they have their Discord feed directed to YouTube, for example. Whereas I use Zoom as the source of my feed, which is then piped over to YouTube. But I could set it up so that Discord is where I have my calls, and then that info gets directed over to YouTube. Maybe I'll do that at some point in the future. But for right now, I'm using Zoom. Okay, let me come back to the chat. Uh, Latent Prion here, he says you can debate people on Discord. Yeah, I've done that a lot. Hi, Wade. I see he's here. Wade from South Africa. Hopefully, by starting at an earlier time, made it easier for you to be here. All right, I was up to Motley H was the next chat. He says you're all under the illusion that your emergent perspective thinks. If you want to know what free will is, here's my essay. I have to go, but but I wanted to contribute. I don't think you can post a link here in the chat. I think only I can post links. So I don't know if you tried to include a link to your essay, but I don't see any link here. I guess you could describe how to find your link if you can't post a link. But Evolutionary says if you have free will, eat glass. Try to override your evolutionary programming. Free will is an illusion, he says. Well, free will is not omnipotence. It doesn't mean you can do anything. I think that's a common misconception of free will. If you believe in free will, that means you can choose to do anything, like eat glass. No, I think there are certain things that now some people like maybe David Blaine, the magician, maybe he can eat glass. I don't know if that's a trick or what, but I think he's taken like a wine glass and bitten off chunks of it, and at least it looks like he's eating it. Um, but I don't think anyone can do that. Like you might have, given your skill set, I don't know if you want to, if you would call it a skill set to be able to eat glass safely. But if you don't have those skills, um, and you don't have like suicidal desires, then maybe you can't eat glass. Um, it would just be too much for you to. Now, maybe over time you could. Maybe you could develop a psychology which um, over time makes you more and more suicidal. And at that point, maybe you would be able to choose to eat glass. But I don't think like if you're just a healthy person psychologically, if you're in that state, that you could just choose to eat glass. Maybe if someone put a gun to your head or something and said you have to eat glass or else I'm going to shoot you, maybe in that context you could. But if we're not talking about a very unusual case like that, then um, I doubt you could just choose to eat glass. But that doesn't mean you can't choose other things. In particular, whether to um, have reason be your guide or to let emotion be your guide. That is something that I think you have a choice over. Wade says, drinking alcohol, I can be aware of my mind becoming drunk. However, there seems a sober agent that perceives the drunkenness. Consciousness seems complete or not present at all, no in between. I think there are levels of consciousness, like like you can be fully aware, fully in control, or only partially in control. Like I think there are different states between being comatose or a vegetable where you have no consciousness at all, and then being fully in control of your mind. You could also be an emotionalist, right? A person or an evader, someone who's just not facing the facts, letting his emotions drive him. Um, Someone like that, uh, who's just a whim worshiper, a term Ayn Rand uses sometimes. I like that description. Someone who's a whim worshiper, um, just following his whims, whatever desires he happens to have in the moment without thinking about the consequences, whether it's good for himself in the long run. That person is not a vegetable, right? So he's not unconscious, but he's or she's also not fully in control of him or herself. Um, she's kind of acting like an animal, animalistically, not not a rational animal, right? That's the distinctively human type of animal, as Aristotle called us. Man is the rational animal. But being rational is a matter of choice, right? And if you don't exercise your reason, then you descend into being a subhuman type of animal, or that's how you're acting, right? Acting like an animal, maybe binging on food or drugs or alcohol or sex, mindless, meaningless, irrational sex. Um, so I do think there are levels at which you can be in control. Um, but there's also, but I also do think there is, I guess it's right to say conscious is either present or not present at all, as Wade says. So you're either conscious or you're not conscious. However, there are different forms of consciousness, and that's what I've been talking about. Those are the different, when I say levels of awareness, that's what I've been trying to illustrate. Um, they're all conscious, or they're all awareness is a synonym of consciousness, as I understand it. All levels of awareness are awareness, but they're different forms of awareness, more or less in control. Um, all right, let me read some more of these chats. So physics says we are only aware of 5% matter, says DJ Onyx. The other 95%, we have no clue. Uh, it looks like he says that's according to NASA and more scientists. Humans don't exist outside of matter, but made up of matter. So at some level, we barely know 5%. I've heard of dark matter. I'm not sure if that's so there's outer space, right? You got all this relatively dense matter on the planets. Although if you zoom into the atom level, right, isn't I've heard it said like the distance between the nucleus of an atom and the electrons is analogous to like the distance between the sun and the, some of the planets, or maybe it's even more than that. I don't remember what exactly it is, but um, the idea is that there's a huge amount of empty space even within the atom. Now, um, if we're being very precise, I don't think there is any empty space. I don't think there is nothing. There is no nothing, as Parmenides, the ancient Greek philosopher, said, or I guess he put it as, what is not is not. What is, and what is not is not. I think that's one of the aphorisms of the ancient Greek philosopher Parmenides. So there is no nothing. If there were a nothing, it wouldn't be nothing. That would be a contradiction. The nothing would be a something. But nothing is not just a different type of something. No, what is not is not. It isn't. Um, so if we're being precise, I don't think there's empty space. Um, I think maybe it just means when people say like most of the universe is composed of empty space, to be what they really mean is it's not composed of the things we normally think of when we think of them as matter. But maybe there's some other kind of matter, dark matter, that does occupy that, or maybe it's just kind of a placeholder term. I don't know. I haven't looked into this much, but I think that the ether is another term that I think is hypothesized to be the stuff where there is no stuff in an ordinary understanding of stuff, like um, that which is where nothing isn't. You could think of that as like the idea of the ether, um, which I'm not sure how that overlaps or doesn't overlap with the idea of dark matter. And there might be more scientific understandings of the ether. I gave you kind of just very basic philosophical understanding of the ether, that which is where nothing isn't. Um, but maybe scientists could flesh that out more. But anyways, there's a few thoughts prompted by that comment by DJ Onyx. See, we got some more chats from Latent Prion coming in here. I wonder how you got that name, Latent Prion. I wonder what inspired that name. If you want to share, you don't have to, of course, but I'm curious. Um, Motley H says, I guess it's too long. You mean your essay that you tried to share? Um, Wade says, we have been systematically reducing our servitude to evolutionary instincts, civilization, becoming civilized is taking the future from the hands of unconscious evolution. Well, we are doing things like gene editing, and we have genetically modified foods, so, which I think is good. I think that these are scientific advances, and I think these should be embraced because they can make life, they can make our lives healthier, longer, happier. We can have designer babies. I heard that term used. Um, and Greg says the temporal versus the eternal, time versus no time, that to which time applies contrasted with that to which time does not apply. Yeah, talked about that a little earlier. Well, I think the universe, I didn't mention that. I don't think the universe is something to which time applies. Like you can't ask, or it would be an invalid question to ask, how old is the universe? You could ask, like, how long was it since there was a Big Bang? If there was a Big Bang, which I'm not taking a position on, but if there was a Big Bang, maybe it happened 15 billion years ago. I've heard people say things like that, but that's not the beginning of the universe. That's just when this bang happened. That's when the matter that existed changed its form. The singularity, they call it. It was all this super compact um, ball of matter, and then it exploded in the Big Bang. But how old was that singularity? How long was the ball there? Um, I don't think there's an answer you can give to that question, like in terms of years, um, because I think the universe as a whole is eternal. Like I don't, maybe you can't even say it's a ball because that gives a shape to the universe as a whole, which implies that um, everything has a shape. But to have a shape for the universe as a whole, I don't know that that's coherent because wouldn't that have to imply there's something outside the universe to act as a bound by reference to which you say what the shape of the universe is? So there are certain concepts like time and space or time and shape, which I don't think apply to the universe. They apply to things inside the universe. Like you could say, what is the shape of this galaxy, or what is the shape of this table that I'm holding my laptop on? Or how long is this live stream? How long has it been since George Washington was alive? But these are all events and shapes within the universe. You're not asking about the shape or the age of the universe as a whole. So I think it would be an invalid question to ask about the latter. All right, so we got a bunch of comments here from Latent Prion. Let me check some of these. Have you encountered presuppositional apologetics or the transcendental argument for God? I've heard of those, but I don't remember much about them, so I can't really comment on them now. Maybe the latter is a priori argument for God as opposed to like an empirical argument. Like maybe just the very idea of what God is supposed to somehow prove that God exists. Um, I'm not sure. And then Latent Prion's got a comment about Parmenides. He says that's not what Parmenides meant. He was saying that every linguistic symbol we use refers to something that in some way exists. He was propounding a theory of memory. He wasn't saying that we can't refer to things that exist. Rather, he was saying that everything we refer to must necessarily actually exist in some way. I want to find his fuller quote, which relates to some of what you're saying there. Okay, so here's what this AI overview says about this. He says, or it says, Parmenides argued that what is exists and is the sole reality, while what is not does not exist and cannot be thought or spoken of. I did not make any claim about whether it can be thought of or spoken of. I was just saying that it doesn't exist. What is not is not. Another word for not what is not is non-being, and another word for what is being. Um, so I was just saying what is not, and I didn't include the part from Parmenides where he says um, what is not doesn't cannot be thought or spoken of. But I think that's what you're mentioning in that last chat that I read. You say you chose your screen name when you were 15. I'm in my 30s now. But I'm curious, like why, what is a prion? Is that some subatomic particle? An infectious agent? Prions are misfolded proteins that can cause other proteins to misfold, leading to brain damage and neurological diseases. Unlike viruses or bacteria, prions don't contain any genetic material, DNA or RNA. They are essentially infectious agents made of protein only. Okay, and latent means hidden, right? So you're like you're a hidden infectious agent. Are you trying to infect people, infect people's brains? Is that the idea? I hope I don't get an infection here through the chat. You say, what's your opinion on post-humanism? Would you be happy to leave your biological body behind entirely and live in a completely mechanical body? Uh, Maybe it depends on what a mechanical body means exactly. Like You could think of the human body as mechanical in a way. It's just a very complicated machine. So what does it mean to say mechanical here? Like 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 a robot made out of metal and I mean if there's a way to get around health problems, if you have health problems with your body, if you could like if you have a diseased arm or something, if there's a way to like regrow or replace the arm so that it's fully functional and that's a good thing. All right, so um, that catches me up on the chat. One just came in from Wade, though. He says to Latent Prion, I'm not convinced that biology and technology can be symbiotic to such an extreme extent. And then Prion says he means made of metal and silicon, man-made technology. Well, what would be the advantage of that? Like, if that means you can't experience pleasure, like, what if you, there's the pleasure of getting a massage, for example. Could you no longer experience that pleasure if you're made out of metal and silicon? Well, that would be a reason to prefer the biological body rather than the metal and silicon body. Pleasure is crucial to happiness. What about sexual pleasure? I mean, could you experience that kind of pleasure if you're made out of metal and silicon? So it depends on, what the thought experiment is. What kind of effects does it have on you? Um, all right. I think I might need to uh, get some lunch now. Late lunch. We've been going for 3 hours and 20 minutes about. So we got to cover a lot. Yeah, I'm going to end the stream. So thanks everyone for coming by. I definitely appreciate the participation in the chat and the person who called in. And thanks for all the likes. Definitely appreciate that. And the new subscribers, thank you very much for that. I expect I will stream again in another 3 or 4 days. Not sure exactly what time, but hope to see some of you all again. All right. Maybe I'll hang out here for another minute to see if anything urgent comes up in the chat. Anyone wants to say? Wade has a couple more comments. He says, replying to latent prion consciousness, I would see more as a programmer and habit the software. Not sure what that means. But maybe we can talk about it another time. And then Wade says, thanks for the thoughtful comments, Dan. You're welcome. Thanks for being here. All right. Thanks everyone again for coming by and hope to see you later. Have a good rest of your day. Bye.